Hello, everyone. So, what's going to happen this year then? It's come to that time. The political pantomime has returned, this time between Trump and Kamala Harris. But does this mean anything at all? Um, are they all just puppets that are being manipulated by a higher power? Do we not have a sort of real world and a fake world, as Plato pointed to with his allegory of the cave? Um, an underworld of sorts in which people are fundamentally continuously controlled, manipulated, and focused on menial affairs. Mostly, people have to, of course, concentrate on their work because we have to pay to live, to pay to be alive. So the distraction there is almost complete, but television, radio, music, all the rest of it is there to distract people and keep them preoccupied with secular affairs. And politics is no different. It's a slightly loftier pursuit and interest for people. It's sort of a psyop for the middle classes, you see, because people can't even see through the U.S. elections, which are kind of very much comedic in part. Um, and of course, now we have what's coming up, I believe, to be the placation of the right. They need to be appeased because they've been pushed so far and the woke agenda is so insane that, of course, what I feel is going to happen is the last straw is going to be the fact that the Democrats are going to rig it again. But this time it's going to be overturned after civil unrest and a lot of violence takes place. And this will be seen, I think, in the future as a historic event. Of course, there's going to be no change on a macro scale. Like capitalism is still going to be here to a certain extent. Communism is still going to be here to a certain extent. These terms are very much just ambiguous, I feel now. What we really need to be talking about is a sliding scale of abundance and scarcity. We will certainly be in the latter camp going forwards. And it doesn't matter really who wins this US election because the technocracy is not up for grabs. That is what's being implemented through, not least, Agenda 2030. So Elon Musk, I feel, and Donald Trump will eventually be triumphant. And these have become sort of savior figures, haven't they? They've become political spearheads, at least, Donald Trump is, um, of seeming progress, like this idea that somehow almost the right wing have become the progressives. But if you watch the Joe Rogan interview recently, you'll have noticed that he's principally concerned with the economy and money and wealth. And of course, he's a businessman. And so, you know, who is it that's actually going to step forwards and talk about real matters such as poverty, suffering, freedom, um, and just the liberation from this psychological torment that we're currently experiencing? And it's become such a normalized misery for people that we kind of think that this is just the way it is, and that's what we've been born into, and therefore no one can actually see through the falsehood or notion that we're not really being sold anything different ever. It's sort of like a controlled option, left or the right. They're two faces of the same arse, as some people have said, two wings of the same bird, that bird perhaps being Satan. Um, and so there's nothing being offered here other than this kind of base level retaliation against some of the insane measures that were being pushed and rammed down our throats, which are, of course, absolutely insane. Um, Not least the transgender agenda and the social engineering at place there, and things like truancy, where Kamala Harris is locking parents up for them not being willing to go to these brainwashing camps that we call education and schools. Um, but ultimately, I feel like what's going to happen this time around is Kamala Harris will be declared as victorious, and then a few weeks will go by, and eventually, this time, it will come to light that it's been rigged, and Donald Trump will shine forth and people will feel like we've actually got someone who's going to represent us. But remember what Lenin said. He said the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. Um, and this is ultimately what's happening. And if you ever look at some of the Freemasonic quotes from some of the, I think it's Albert Mackey or Albert Pike rather, he said something along the lines of, when the people need a hero, we shall provide him. Um, and so they understand that there's all these different ways of thinking, the left, the right, they understand it all, even for us awakening folk. They know that we think and feel in a certain way, and therefore they can manipulate us based on that. One thing that comes to mind is the flat earth theory. These things are planted in the community, and it ultimately discredits the entire movement, or we get associated with things. And of course, conspiracy, the term conspiracy is a term that's widely now used. As soon as someone suggests of some sort of grandiose plot against humanity, the label that discredits you almost immediately through knee-jerk reaction is the word conspiracy. Um, so, it's an interesting time, but it's also a very scary time unless we come together. And that's, of course, what I'm campaigning for here, which is to us to simply realize the truth that we are actually the 99.9% on this planet. Um, we needn't be preoccupied with what this elitist class of politicians are doing, because that's where the psyop is. As soon as your attention goes there, that's where the energy flows, and that's you know what ultimately transpires is the continuation of that control system. Even if it's got a new dress on, something slightly different or something that's seemingly progressive, ultimately isn't in the whole scheme of things. You'll still be enslaved, and you'll still be having to pay to live. You won't have a right to live. And of course, that's what I'm campaigning for here at newearth.land. Shelter, energy, food, and water, those things should be human rights. Is actually bring real reform into the world. We can only do that when we come together and start to empower ourselves through social media. And so I'm recommending that we do it through programs like this, YouTube, Instagram, so on and so forth. And I just think, why don't we just get on with it now? Like, you can check out the website to learn more, newearth.land, and do be a part of it. It's just simply a case of subscribing or connecting, and then sharing with friends and family, and then supporting the grassroots movement towards liberation. No more rent, no more bills. Then we'll have more time to elevate our consciousness and ascend this material plane of illusion. And it will be a ruddy, bloody, lovely time for everyone. So that's all I've got to say this time round. That's my prediction. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.